Hey, hello, happy Thursday. How are you? It's Rosalia Rivera here. I'm back for another Consent Parenting Live. I'm here every Thursday helping you, if you're a parent, learn how to teach your child about body safety, boundaries, and consent. I'm a consent educator and child sexual abuse prevention expert. I'm also a survivor and work with parents who are survivors. So if that's you, definitely stick around. I'm going to be talking today about, let me pull up my slide here. We're going to be talking about teaching kids body literacy for body safety. Now, if both of those terms are new to you, I'm going to break down what that's all about so that you can start using this information to teach your child about how to keep their body safe. So, definitely tune in. We're going to be talking about the do's and the don'ts. And I'm curious if you've started having these conversations already with your kids. Have you talked about private part safety? Have you talked about body literacy? Are you helping your child to have good body positivity, not just around their overall body, but about those specific parts that I think a lot of parents are not really sure how to talk about, which are private parts? So, we're going to talk about that today. And I'm going to help you get confident so that your child is confident about their body. But yeah, let me know if you have started this conversation or if you aren't sure how to start the conversation or you want to start the conversation, but you just haven't yet. Maybe your child you feel is too young, or maybe you feel like you missed the boat and you're not sure how to talk about it at this point. I'd love to know. Share with me in the comments below, and I will be sure to answer you either here live or afterwards. So if you're watching this on the replay, let me know that you were here, hashtag replay, and let me know that you are watching after the video went live. So thanks for tuning in. Again, I'm Rosalia Rivera for those of you who are new. And today we are talking about teaching kids body literacy for body safety. It's really important that we have these conversations in 2022 because the truth is, unfortunately, there has been a sharp increase in the last 2 years of abuse with children, particularly the younger that they are, the age range between 2 and 6 years old for offline and 6+ for online. So this still can apply in lots of ways, even for children that are older. But we're going to focus mostly on if you are just starting to teach about private parts. Usually you should be getting started between the ages of 2 to 3 when it is time to start possibly transitioning to potty training. If you're in that phase, this is a great time. This is a perfect opportunity to start teaching this. So let's get started. First of all, we're going to talk about the fact that I see parents do this all the time. They talk about private parts as the parts that are below their bathing suits. And while this is okay if, educators, teachers are talking about this in school and they can't use the correct anatomical language, I get it. But if you're the parent and you're able to teach this correctly, we need to stop just talking about this as the word private parts and saying the parts that are underneath your bathing suit or your underwear. Let's move away from that because that creates a lot of ambiguity. It creates a lot of sort of sense of shame that we can't name these parts. So we want to make sure that we are talking about it in the correct ways that are going to help your child have positive feelings about their private parts. And we're going to talk about why that's important in a bit. But we're also going to focus on what are the things that you should be teaching about body safety and what not to teach. So let's do that. First of all, the do's and the don'ts. We're going to talk about the do's every time, which is teach your child to use the correct anatomical words and do not use nicknames. I see this still to this day. A lot of people use things like the word cookie or wiener or other, words that really should not be used. I mean, you can use these as nicknames jokingly if you feel that, you want to teach them because that's what people use in the world. But you should also be talking about are also using the words vulva, vagina, penis, scrotum, all of the words that are anatomically correct. For younger kids, you can say, instead of anatomical, you can say doctor words, right? So doctor words are the words that are the correct terms, right? So we want to make sure that we're moving away from using things like cookie. And part of the reason why is because if someone was to inappropriately touch them in these parts, and all that they know are these nicknames, when they are trying to communicate to someone that they've been touched inappropriately in those places, and they say, someone touched my cookie, they may misunderstand and not recognize that this child is trying to disclose inappropriate touch. I remember when I was being certified in abuse prevention education, there was a case study of a child who was taught that their word was pocketbook. And, this is a little girl who played with dolls and had things like pocketbooks. So whenever she was telling someone, my dad plays with my pocketbook, that caregiver, that teacher did not pick up on the fact that this child was talking about an abusive situation. And it wasn't until the child was saying it to her mother, who had taught her that the word was pocketbook, that she realized that she was talking about abuse with the father, and was able to finally step in and get the child the support and report the situation. So really critical that you do not use nicknames as the correct terms. If you want to use them because you're embarrassed that your child might use this in public, then it's time to reevaluate how we feel about these words ourselves. And if it's something that makes you personally feel uncomfortable, it's really important that you start to adjust and get used to the fact that these are not dirty words. They're not bad words. There's nothing wrong with these words. And then just educating our children about when it's appropriate to say them, and try not to yell them out loud in the grocery store in public, but that it is important that they understand what these correct words are. All right, so let's keep going. Another do and don't. So let's make sure that we do teach our children about their body's functions and to normalize body processes, and do not shame a child for exploring their body. Now, what do I mean by that exactly? So it's important that we're teaching our children what those different parts of the bodies do. So we urinate, we eliminate waste, right? We use these parts of our bodies for those things. There are also reproductive capacities. Now, this is where I think a lot of parents get tripped up, because then they're like, am I supposed to teach my 3-year-old about the birds and the bees? Like, are they going to need to know that? Do they need to understand that? How do I teach that at that age? There's some really great books that talk about how to teach children from as early as 4 up, even as early as 3, depending on the book that you're talking about. But there's really great books that help children to understand the biological functions of the different parts of the body. There's a really great book, which I'm going to be doing a book review on soon, which is called Your Whole Body. And this book actually really shows in depth, like we're talking about body parts like the anus and the buttocks. The perineum is even explained here. Different parts, including like the circumcision foreskin, or not circumcised foreskin. So there are lots of ways that we can use tools to teach the appropriate functions of the different parts of the body, what they do, and to also let children know that there is nothing wrong with them wanting to learn about those parts of the bodies and to explore them if they choose to, right? So it's not that we're necessarily encouraging that children explore their bodies, but it is certainly not inappropriate for them to do so, as long as there are safety conversations built in, right? So making sure that we are talking to our kids about the fact that, exploring their body is totally normal, and how to do it in a way that is safe. So that means even talking to our children about their body's physiological responses and processes. So for boys, for example, this can mean helping them to learn to understand the concept of erection. If you notice that your child is experiencing that, or is, feeling that that's happening, and they're not sure what's happening, and they're asking, like, why is this happening? really talking to them in an open and very fact-based way, right? So we want to make sure that we're giving them the right information of why that happens, how that happens, and also to teach them about safe versus unsafe touch. So let's not just say, yeah, that's called an erection, but also that this is something that can happen. It is okay for them to explore their bodies if that happens. If it feels good, it's okay. And that it is only something that they should do for, on their own, not with anyone else, that no one else should be asking them to touch their private parts. And these are opportunities where we can continuously have these conversations about body safety and about safe versus unsafe touch. And I want to point out also that it's really important that we're careful about the language that we use, that we don't use the language of good touch versus bad touch, because it may feel good if they are exploring their bodies. And if somebody else, does that and takes advantage and says, well, doesn't it feel good? It's not bad touch. It can be really confusing for a child. So we want to make sure that we're using the words safe versus unsafe. It is safe for you to explore your body. It is not safe for someone else to explore your body. So making sure that we are adding this to the conversation when we're talking about physiological responses and body processes is really important, including when it's appropriate for a designated caregiver to help them with things like hygiene. So this is where we want to make sure that when we're doing things like potty training or helping them to clean themselves or wipe or change a diaper, or if it's bath time, that they understand what is appropriate if someone has to help them with those things. So narrating the process, letting them know this is, what I'm doing. This is the only time that this should be done. This is how long it should take. And then that's it. So that the child knows what is, again, safe versus unsafe, right? So making sure that we're having these conversations is really important as well. And then also, body literacy means helping your child to name their physical sensations. Things like, if their head hurts or they have a leg pain, what does it feel like to them? Is it a sharp pain? Is it a dull pain? Is it a throbbing pain? Is it like a momentary pain? What does it feel like in their bodies when they're feeling full or overfull, or when they're hungry? If they're cold, if they're hot, if they're fatigued, right? Helping kids to name the sensations that they feel in their body. When they feel nervous, what does that feel like? All of that is helping them to understand their body and is considered body literacy. And the reason why this is so important is for kids to understand when something doesn't feel right, so that it helps them to understand and develop their sense of intuition, their gut feelings. If touch feels uncomfortable to them, if pressure of any kind feels uncomfortable, if somebody hugs them too hard, or shakes their hand too hard, like all of those things are ways for them to understand how their body feels in an interaction, and that they can speak up to express that, right? So it's really helpful for them. Another thing that we tend to do as parents, though, is also to unintentionally gaslight our children and negate their feelings or their sensations. So if your child fell down and scraped their knee and you didn't think it was such a big deal, but they are like losing it because they think it's so painful, and you're like, but you barely scraped your knee, like, get over it. And they're really, in your perspective, over responding, and you tell them, oh, it's okay, it's just not going to hurt so much, but they are experiencing it. We don't really know what our children's pain thresholds are, especially when they're first experiencing this in the world. For us, we may feel like it shouldn't be a big deal, but to them it is. And we tell them it's not a big deal, or we tell them, oh, you can't be full, you barely ate. Or we say, how can you feel that way? Like, that doesn't look like it hurt. We are negating their experience and invalidating their physical experiences. So by doing that, we're not really helping to support their body literacy. We want them to express to us what they're feeling, and for us to help them understand and navigate those feelings without invalidating them. So it's really important that we also be cautious of doing that and not remove that experience from them, so that they don't trust their experience or their bodies, right? So that may not be something that you thought about before, right? Even something like when they're starting to learn about that sense of urgency when they need to pee and they're going to go potty, right? All of those things can help them to really understand the sensations of their bodies. And it can help with potty training a lot more too. So, last but not least, how do we do all these things? Well, there are some really great tools and resources out there to teach this. I am going to show you a couple in a second, but using books, watching videos, and following accounts that help you to learn and teach this. Some accounts that I really love are Sex Positive Families, for example. There are other accounts that talk about body safety as well, like Parenting Safe Children, the Tough Topics Mom. Tough Topics Mom has a great book, which also includes some information about private part safety. But I have some here that I wanted to share with you, and I'm going to be doing reviews on this. This one's called Your Whole Body Book. Stay tuned, actually, because I'm going to be sharing a full review on Instagram today about that book. Another one is Amazing You. This one's called Getting Smart About Your Private Parts. This one has some really great, parts as well that talk about, sometimes people use funny words to talk about private parts. So it's not about like not recognizing that people use those terms, but it's about helping kids correct and use the right terms. Another one is this one, My Voice is My Superpower. This has one section where it talks about private parts as well. Let me just find the section here. So it helps to talk about it. I think there is a page here where they show it more in depth. So there are lots of great books that you can use. Again, as well, you can check out an organization called amaze.org. They have Amaze Junior, which has some great videos that you can also check out. Lots of resources. You can also find a list of books that I recommend on my website, consentparenting.com. There's a free PDF guide of book recommendations broken down by age groups that I recommend. I will post a link to that here in the comments so that you can check that out. But I would love to know what else, what else do you want to know in terms of private parts and private part safety? I want to invite you to stay connected. I am always posting on my blog. You can listen to my podcast at aboutconsent.com. Stay connected with me on Instagram, or turn on your notifications so that you catch my weekly videos here on Facebook. I really enjoy coming on every week to either share a book review or teach you something new that's going to help you have these conversations and start teaching this information to your kids, because we need to make sure that we are prioritizing this information today more than ever. So I want to thank you for being here. I would love to hear your takeaways and what are you going to implement? I'm all about taking action and not just taking in the information, but I would love to hear, what are you actually going to put into practice? What are you going to start teaching about this week? I would love to hear it in the comments, so let me know. And if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out. I'm always available, and I look forward to hearing your success stories. I'm Rosalia Rivera for Consent Parenting. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.